Welcome to the Interstate Mets Report with your hosts, Nelson and Chris. Yo, what's up, everybody? Nelson here, aka the Amish Country Mets fan, with episode 11 of the Interstate Mets Report. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Chris. What up, Chris?
What up, Nelson? How are you? Glad to be back on another episode of the Interstate Mets Report. Happy to be here. I got some good topics. We got good topics with little to discuss, so we make the best out of nothing.
Yeah, not a lot to. We really are kind of making something out of nothing, but it is what it is. We're gonna keep doing it. We'll be here, and if ever any actual news drops, then we'll. Which actually, there is some news that dropped today, about Mauricio, so we'll touch on that, as well. As
And
always,
Marte.
What's that?
And Marte, Buck Showalter in
Oh
a press
yeah,
conference. We'll talk about it.
whatever. Uh, but yeah, as always, just gonna do the quick little plugs right before we jump in. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already at Amish Country Met. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. It's Amish Country Mets fan, and that's also my name right here on YouTube. So if you happen to be on Chris's page and you're watching and you, for some reason, haven't subscribed yet, which I don't see why you wouldn't have, but if you haven't, please subscribe to Chris's page. Then jump on over to mine and subscribe to mine as well. And then, of course, Chris is on CPNY Sports on YouTube and same handle on Twitter and Instagram, CPNY Sports. And then give us a follow if you can on Twitter at Interstate Mets. That's at Interstate Mets. The show is the Interstate Mets Report. We had to cut the handle a little bit for Twitter. Twitter doesn't like super long handles. Or technically it's X. We really need to we really need to update this at some point. It's not Twitter, it's X, but I'm gonna live and die with the bird, so it is what it is. All right, so let's jump into it. Got a few topics for everyone today. The first one is the latest on Baty, Marte, and Nimmo. So if you haven't heard, if you kind of been maybe took a break from the Mets, I don't blame you. But Brett Baty was sent down to Syracuse after his somewhat troubling comments about the mental aspect of the game and how he isn't necessarily how it's a little easier in the minors because you don't have to focus like as hard and whatnot. I mean, he's young, he can adjust, but that does scare me a little bit. But either way, he is down now in Syracuse. Starling Marte back on the injured list. Apparently the groin is hurt again, which we knew, I mean, from the start that his groin was bothering him. That was no surprise. And then we'll get to Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo has kind of fallen off the face of the earth recently. And he really can't explain it. It's really ever since he made those comments about losing sleep. But even before then, he really wasn't that great. So what are your initial thoughts on Baty, Marte, and Nimmo, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, starting off with Baty, we talked about it yesterday on the Roundtable podcast with Hayden and Rob. If you haven't checked that out, go check it out. Nelson and I do that every Monday on Talking Mets with Rob's channel. We all stream it to our channels as well. It's a good little group. We had the same discussion. We're gonna be talking about some topics that we talked about yesterday as well. So, but just Baty, I mean, it makes sense why he, got sent down, hitting 216 with, a 620 OPS, his defensive struggles, not only the pop-up that he gets, destroyed on Twitter for, but or I should say destroyed on X for, but his arm and his just overall fielding at third base has just looked very shaky. And I attribute that to his confidence. His confidence level is not there. If you look at And what doesn't make sense to me is when I scroll through Twitter, people are like, finally, I saw a comment the other day under a tweet saying, finally, enough with this Baty experiment. What experiment are we talking about? There's no experimenting with Brett Baty. He was hitting lights out in every single level, at every single level in the minor league system. There's no experimental beings with Brett Baty. So to say that he was an experiment is an absolute stretch. You don't know what you're talking about if you're saying that. That really frustrated me to see on Twitter out of the Mets fan base. Just like clueless people have no. He was one of our best prospects coming up, and probably one of our only prospects that was like MLB ready outside of Alvarez back in that 2022 season. And it's hard to watch, and it's been hard to watch for him all season long. His power is not there. He's a line drive hitter. He usually generally has a nice short swing, but it's just produced more ground balls than line drives, if anything. And that's one of the things where I'm curious if he goes back down in the minor leagues, are they going to try to elongate his swing just a little bit to get him some lift on the ball? Because honestly, at this point, it probably wouldn't be a bad thing for him to stop hitting these ground balls elevated in the gaps. So I'll see. We'll see about that. We'll see about his position moving forward. Third base is a really, really tough spot in the field, regardless at the major league level. Baseballs come at you fast over there. We were blessed to see David Wright for however many years over there at third base, and for Brett Baty to go in and to fill the shoes of David Wright. Obviously there was a couple years in between where we saw Wright leave and then Baty come in now, but in general, it's a tough position. I feel for the kid, and yeah, he's right. To be honest with you, although the comments backfired, and I'm not sure how much of those comments had to do with him getting sent down, he was being honest. He was being honest, which I can appreciate. He said that I am not locked in. I find it hard to lock in every single pitch. And to be honest, a major leaguer shouldn't be saying that. So I get why people are concerned. So I think he'll get it together. He's not a bust by any means. I think he's got what it takes. He just needs a little bit more polishing, I guess, which sucks because we all thought that he was ready. He was ready to kill it. Like Alvarez is killing it right now in the majors, and it just hasn't happened. Now, Starling Marte, man, we all know that he's been injured. We all know he was injured from the start. If you've been watching Nelson and I's content for the last couple months, I think I started doing these videos around mid-May. And then, Nelson and I started doing, this stuff shortly after. We've said it all along that Starling Marte has not looked right. At the plate, he's looked lost, absolutely lost, just terrible swings. He had a stretch there where he was starting to turn it around, but all in all, he hasn't been the 2022 Marte. And in right field, right? In right field, zero, like unreliable. And that is not what we expect out of Starling Marte in right field. Generally a sure thing in right field, letting balls that he usually gets to drop in the outfield, doesn't have that explosive step. To be honest, though, I don't know. Like he's got a lot of stolen bases this year. To be honest with you, which is kind of like head scratching with how he has those stolen bases. Maybe it's because of the new rules and it's a little bit easier for him. But if he's banged up, I would imagine he wouldn't be stealing as often as he has. I think he's in like what 25 plus stolen bases on the season, right? Um, if I have that correct. But anyways, I think, obviously today Buck Showalter said that they're not shutting him down for the rest of the season. That's not the goal. I think you should. I think you should just shut him down, get him ready for 2024 and beyond. And, we'll see what happens in the trade market for him if he has any value moving forward or not. Brandon Nimmo as well. You said he lost sleep. He's dealing with I think it's a quadriceps injury, some sort of lower or leg injury. He lost sleep over what the Mets did at the deadline and their vision moving forward. Oh man, it's frustrating to hear that out of Brandon Nimmo. This guy just got a bag with the Mets. The Mets overpaid for him, like you said, Nelson. I completely agree with you. They overpaid for Brandon Nimmo because they had to. The Giants were in on him. I think everyone was talking about the Rockies. I'm not sure how serious of contenders they were. I think I heard some grumblings about the Mariners being in on him this past offseason as well. They had to overpay for him. So for him to sit here and I get it. He's not directly throwing the front office under the bus, but by his actions, he really is. And it's just disappointing to hear. You got your money, why can't you just mimic some of the stuff that we heard out of Francisco Lindor's mouth? He knows that he's going to be here for the foreseeable future, and you are too. So I don't know why he's doing this. And it's pathetic to say you lost sleep over it. That is pathetic. That is pathetic. Um, Normally I'm one of Brandon Nimmo's biggest fans, but that really irked me. That's just not acceptable. You don't say that to the media because they're going to make it a bigger story than what it really is. Do I think it's a big story in the grand scheme of things? No. It's disappointing, but it's not a huge story. But the media is going to remember that. And they're not going to let that one go. So we'll see what happens. These three guys really have been disappointing. Nimmo, not really so much production wise, because I think we've gotten what we expected out of Brandon Nimmo, I would say, both defensively and offensively. I think we have. I don't think Nimmo's anything. I mean, maybe, his offensive metrics dropped a little bit. And, I thought there was going to be some regression anyways out of Brandon Nimmo. I think that's natural to say. But all in all, out of the handful of guys that have been solid for this team, I would probably lump Brandon Nimmo in that category, maybe as one of the last ones. That's what I would say. But it's disappointing. It's really disappointing. So that's my take on this. But really, the news that dropped today for me, that was an eye opener during the press conference. Buck Showalter saying that the goal is not to shut Starling Marte down. So don't expect that moving forward.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do these in reverse order, but before that, I want to just, because we got some comments, I don't want to fall too much behind. Our guy, future Met Yoshinobu Yamamoto, says, "What's up? What's up, Yoshi?" Um, I can't get over. I wish I knew his real name. Your thoughts on JRAM and Anderson's suspension? Seems like a slap on the wrist. We'll touch on that later. That was an interesting little fight there that you don't usually see in MLB. Will the Mets call up Mauricio from the Miners on August 19th so he'll play second for the remainder of the season? I'll get to that because I'm going to touch on that point here in a second. Nimmo needs to get his testosterone checked because he acting like a whip. All right. So, first off, I'm going to touch on Nimmo. You're right. Nimmo, of all the guys, he probably has been one of our more consistent guys. That said, his last 50 games, he's hitting 212 with a 753 OPS, 11 homers, 26 RBIs, and 56 strikeouts. Not very good. I find it interesting, the dynamic with Nimmo, as opposed, I'm just going to bring it up. I know I shouldn't, but as opposed to Francisco Lindor, because Francisco Lindor started out a little slow, is smoking hot now, still gets kind of hated on. Brandon Nimmo started out smoking hot, has kind of fell off a cliff. Most people give him a pass other than this little issue with him and his wording at the press conference, which I do have a problem with. I don't like that he kind of, like you said, it felt like he was throwing the front office under the bus. I don't know why he's so worried about Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. Like, they're not going to be here for long term anyway. You are. I just didn't like the comments. And if you're going to make comments like that, at least your play kind of needs to like back up your your concerns that you're not playing well. And part of the reason we're not winning is you're not hitting, and you haven't for over a month. So, and the other thing is, I need Brandon Nimmo to listen. He got off to a great start, but I want Brandon Nimmo to be last year's Brandon Nimmo. I don't know why he changed his style of play. I don't know if it was a conscious thing. I don't know if it's just the way it went. But I like the Brandon Nimmo that works at bats, that gets on base with walks, that slaps the ball the other way, that just gets on base at any means necessary. This Brandon Nimmo that's jacking homers and whatnot, I mean, it's cool, but when you're starting to hit 212, it don't look that great. So I would prefer that we see going forward more of last year's Brandon Nimmo. We'll see what happens. That's all I'm going to say on him. Marte, like you said, Marte's hurt. It's obvious he's been hurt. His play in right field has been atrocious. And it sucks because, like I was saying yesterday on the Roundtable podcast, the dude was the catalyst for our offense last year. Obviously, we missed that this year. You can't deny that. I'm sure it's not the total problem with this team. We know that, but it's a big problem. So that's looks like our buddy M Easy has found his way over to the show. Our favorite internet troll.
One
Yeah,
of them easy.
I don't feel like I'm nitpicking at all. Like, the numbers are what they are. Like, I love it's just people have certain standards for some guys, and apparently they don't for others. I'm gonna call it like it is. It's he right now. He's not playing good. Does that mean I don't want him on my team? No. Does that mean I would trade him? No. Doesn't mean I don't believe in him either. I believe he can be what he is, what he was last year. I just want more of that. I don't want power hitting Brandon Nimmo because that's not my leadoff hitter. I want my leadoff hitter back. But anyways, Marte hurt, whatever. Baty getting sent down. The news, I don't know if you heard it. Ronnie Mauricio is going to be playing third base, shortstop, and second base for this foreseeable future and splitting between those positions at AAA. It sounds
Good.
as if the Mets have decided that Ronnie Mauricio could potentially be the future third baseman and maybe not Brett Baty.
Who said that yesterday?
Yeah.
Who said that?
Yeah, but that's an interesting development because they haven't played Mauricio at third ever. So the fact that they announced that they're going to do that now is interesting. So I'm assuming that means on the days that Mauricio plays third, Baty's going to be moving to left. I mean, that would make the most sense unless they're going to sit him. I doubt that. You want both guys in the lineup. So that's an interesting development. And with the fact that Timothy had made the comment about August 19th, now I'm not so sure about that because if the goal is to get Mauricio playing time at third, he hasn't played a lot there. He hasn't played there at all since the Winter League. So they're probably going to want to get him a lot more reps at third base before they call him up. So we may not see him for a while. I thought maybe August 19th was that going to be that date, but now I'm not so sure anymore. What do you think?
They're going to get him reps. Listen, if he's not brought up by the end of the season, he's getting traded. This could be a ploy for them to just not bring him up. I said it yesterday. I think that if the front office decides they want to see Mauricio at third base, so be it. I don't need to see him at third base in the minor leagues for too long. We all know that defense is not his strong suit. Everyone knows that. So if you're going to be sticking with him in this organization for the long haul, you're going to be fine with his hitting. You're going to put him at third base to see how he fares. The Mets don't have anything to play for anyways. They're playing for their pride. And guess what? Throw in Carlos Carrasco, Daniel Vogelback, Jonathan Arias, Rafael Ortega. That's not very prideful. So listen, it's either an excuse,
Hey,
a
Timmy
ploy, a
LaCastro's on his way
decoy.
back.
What was that?
Said Timmy LaCastro's on his way back.
Oh, the savior. Too bad Mark Hanna's not here anymore. Anyways, um, yeah, and like it's either a ploy or they're actually legit. I still think that we see closer to that August 19th deadline. I think we see Ronnie Mauricio if he's going to be here. If we don't, what is another 2 weeks? Like what the season ends like late or September. Like what's another 2 weeks of him playing third base at AAA gonna do for the long haul of him being a great defender versus an average defender? It's not feasible. So I don't buy into that. But I we'll see, man. I still think he's trade bait until I see him come up. Until I see it with my own eyes, I think he's trade bait.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't disagree. I mean, I need to see him up here and giving him a shot before, or else I think that you're just trying to hide him to keep his trade value up. We'll see. I mean, it'd be nice if they give him some reps at third and then decide, all right, kid, come. Maybe they wait till September to the September call ups and bring him up. I don't know, but I'm leaning towards they're looking to trade him as well. And to be honest, a guy that you have to move so many positions, it might be that his future is at DH anyway. I mean, it's he hasn't proven that his glove is all that. His bat, okay, but his glove, not so much. Before we jump on to the next topic, catch up on some comments. Yamamoto says Brandon strikeouts him. Yeah, he's striking out a lot, and it's a problem. I already touched on MEZ's stick break Baty in the outfield. Sounds like that's what they're gonna be doing. Um, Mets need to lose 40 out of 50 games to get a sweep. Hey, they were well on their way. They finally won one yesterday, but we'll see how the rest of the season goes. And then I want Mauricio Vassal and Jarvis to get their feet wet in the majors. Yeah, and I think we probably will see at the very least Vassal and Jarvis maybe in September. But you never know. Like Chris said, we're not playing for anything at this point, so it is what it is. I think ideally you just want to get some of these guys some experience in the majors. So moving on, and this is a um, big conversation lately. We touched on it last night. Everyone assumes David Stearns is the guy that's going to take over, and there's been reports that he's already agreed to it. Yada yada. But what if? What if David Stearns isn't the guy? And is he the right guy? I know Mr. Easy over here was arguing for Brian Sabian yesterday. Listen, I wouldn't go there. Sabian's an old man. He's kind of hinted that he doesn't really want to be the guy in charge anymore anyway. Not knocking his resume, he's got a great one. But I want, not only with my general manager, president of baseball operations, and manager, I want younger voices, guys that could kind of keep up with the game as it's changing these days. I don't want these old heads that live in the past. I just don't. I'm sorry. Call it ageist, call it whatever you want. That's not me. That's not what I want. Is Stearns the right guy for the job? I'll take this one first, and then I'll get your thoughts. Listen, David Stearns' resume with the Brewers, no, they never won a World Series. Let me give you a little news. A lot of general managers, president of baseball operations, haven't won a World Series. It's a hard thing to do. There's very few of them that have that title behind their name. Who are you going to get that has the kind of resume that Stearns has? Most of those people already have jobs. It is what it is. Could you steal some? I know the popular thing is, well, get somebody from the Tampa organization. I mean, I guess you could do that. I'm not well versed on who their people are. I'm sure they have tons of great voices and assistant general managers and whatnot. But I don't think Steve waited this long to hire some nobody from another organization. I think he wants an established guy. Stearns is obviously has been his choice. The guy took a Brewers organization that was trash. Let's be real. That organization stunk. And he turned it around and took them to the playoffs like, I think it was 4 years in a row. I'd have to fact check myself, but it's some close to that.
It was 4, yep.
Yeah, he built up that farm system. And they're, again, in the contention for winning the division this year. Now, he's not in charge this year, but still, mostly his guys in there. To me, that went to an NLCS, just missed out on a World Series. I think they lost in Game 7, to be honest. So, to me, that's a great resume. That's a guy I wouldn't mind being in charge of my team. Now, will it happen? We don't know. Until he signs a contract and it's official, I'm not going to be celebrating it because I know how things work out for the Mets. Very rarely do things happen the way we want them to. I hope he's in here, though. I really do. Because to be honest, I don't know who the other guy would be. I don't know that there's a name out there that jumps out. I would have to do a lot of research to find someone. But anyways, that's my thoughts on it. What do you think?
I agree, man. I want David Stearns. And it's something to say for when like reporters like John Heyman and respected reporters around the league are reporting this midway through the season that David Stearns is more than likely going to be the POBO for the Mets. Like, we talked about it. I mean, I don't know if there's some collusion going on. I don't know. If the Mets get a draft pick rescinded because of something comes out, next year or something, so be it. I could care less, to be honest with you. Um, because at that point, the Mets will probably be right back where we expected them to be, and that draft pick will be like 30 plus anyways. So we'll see, man. We'll see. Um, yes, his resume is impressive. Like you said, first time in Brewers franchise history, they made the playoffs 4 years in a row. Um, yes, they had a couple chokes. That's not on David Stearns. He got him the roster, built a winning roster for them to get in the spot. If anything, that's maybe more of a knock on Craig Counsell. If anything, right? And we had the topic of would we be angry if Craig Counsell came in the package with David Stearns if Buck Showalter to get fired? Now that's a whole different topic of discussion. But as it pertains to David Stearns, in addition to what you've already said about him, he's shown that he's also capable in the trade market as well. Since being the Brewers GM, he's made a handful of trades, most notable being acquiring Christian Yelich from the Marlins and Willy Adames from the Tampa Bay Rays. So, um, and guess what? That's what the Mets are going to need going forward. They're going to need a president of baseball operations mastermind to cook up some nice trades with the plentiful infielders that the Mets now have in their farm system. So I fully expected it to be David Stearns. I know that the Mets are known for just having the luck of the draw of just things falling through the cracks when everything seems so sure for it to be some certain way. But I really do. The one time that I'll feel confident with something happening, and this was me saying that I'm not even confident that Steve Cohen's going to be able to buy this team when that whole situation was going down and the whole Steve Cohen, being the next owner of the New York Mets was gaining steam. I thought that was going to fall through the cracks, and I thought that was going to be a wash. So
Well, it
I
did the
think
first
I'm
time.
well. It did exactly, and so after that first time when the talk started heating up again, I was like, all right, get this out of my face. I'm not listening to this. Um, but regardless, I feel really confident about this happening. And to your point, like, you know, M Easy had a name thrown out, like he just said yesterday, but I challenge anyone else to find me a name that is going to be, that has as good of a resume, to be honest, because I'm going to say that David Stearns has a good resume and is going to be available immediately to sign this coming off season. I certainly don't have one. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that I do have one. I don't have one. Am I going off of what the reporters on Twitter are saying? Yeah, I'm going off the reporters on Twitter saying because this is what John Heyman does for a living, right? He's not putting that article out, throwing a dart, trying to throw a dart somewhere. That's like Hector Gomez type stuff. Like that's not John Heyman, right? John Heyman's not going to tweet something out and not at least have a little bit of inkling. Now I know Arson Judge, the whole Arson Judge thing with John Heyman. He's had his moments. I get it.
Respect
But
Hector Gomez. He got the Ronnie is going to be playing third base report correct today.
okay, all right. I think Hector Gomez is like 2 for 10 or something. He's batting 200. He's batting 200. So we'll see. This is the same guy saying that Ronnie Mauricio was going to get called up like a month ago or something like that. I saw him. I saw him tweet that as well. So we'll see, man. Another guy MEZ put in here said Josh Burns. I gotta do my research, man. I'm not in tune with the MLB execs as much as some people are. I think David Stearns, though, I think he has a solid resume. I think it's unfair to judge executives on their World Series. Like, unless their roster construction is really just garbage, then I get it. But it's like David Stearns hasn't provided the Brewers with anything. You know what I mean? He's provided them all the tools to succeed. So I get people questioning his winning pedigree, but that's more on the manager at that point, and not being able to utilize. Like the same reason why we say Buck hasn't won anything is the same reason I can sit there and say Craig Counsell hasn't won anything. That's a managerial type fail when we see Buck Showalter have some managerial lapses with the bullpen, etc., throughout his career. Like I'm not blaming the GMs or anything like that, or the president of baseball operations. So I think this team I think if anything we learned in 2023 about the Mets, this team needs some structure. They need some structure because the way that this ship has been rolling right now with Epler and Cohen kind of just co-making these decisions and whoever else is involved behind the scenes, it hasn't been working out. So we'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be David Stearns at this point. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
and then he said, MEZ just said Stearns is the flavor of the month because he is a New York native. Let's keep it real. It's not. That's
Flavor of
not
the month because
true.
is the report is that he's already taken a job. It's not the flavor of the
Yeah,
month. It's like it's out there that he's gonna be the guy, and it's been no secret. He's been the guy Stearns has wanted for years. The Brewers owner just wouldn't let us interview him. Like he wouldn't let him out of his contract. As for Josh Burns, he's the senior vice president of baseball ops for the Dodgers. I mean, he has a contract, I'm sure. It's another guy that we couldn't just, I mean, they're not just going to let us have him. So Stearns is a guy that he's available. He's not under contract after this year. Like you said, a lot these guys aren't just readily available. Teams lock these guys up. They don't let them go. Smart baseball minds are not just guys that are easy to pick out. The teams don't want to lose these guys. So I don't think he's going anywhere. Aaron Cass says we're out on Omar Minaya. Listen, I loved Omar, still love Omar, but I think his time has passed. Again, I'm looking for a young voice, someone that can kind of keep up with the times. I'm out on these older guys. I'm sorry. I just am. If you don't agree, that's on you. But is what it
it's a
is.
that's a good point though, Nelson. That's a good point. It's not like we just heard about David Stearns magically linked to the Mets this season. This has been an ongoing thing for a couple years now, and that's a great point. A lot of people forget about that. So as it pertains to Emizi's comment, it's not true. It's not the flavor of a month situation. It's a flavor of multiple year situation. To be honest with you.
Omar can scout. Omar is a very good scout. He knows talent. That I will give Omar Minaya. So good comment there by Jay. So we'll move on to our next topic because we can talk about David Stearns forever, and I'm sure we'll talk about him on future episodes as well. So next up, Kodai Senga, Mr. Kodai. I mean, what can you say about the guy? He's had um, another solid outing yesterday. I don't know. I really don't know what Buck was thinking sending him out to warm up in that monsoon. Um, if you were gonna take him out, you should have taken him out beforehand, not let him go out there warm up, almost freaking break a leg. Just it would have been our luck that he would have done that too. Like, I mean, we have enough bad luck. That was a scary little moment there. Thankfully, nothing happened to him. He's fine. And what can you say about this guy, man? He's having to adjust to so many things. New country, new language, new baseball, new mounds. He's playing outdoors when he's never done it before. All this stuff, and he's taking it in stride. His command has gotten a lot better. He that ghost fork is nasty. He's just phenomenal, man. This guy is showing me that he could possibly be a future Cy Young Award winner. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like he's got that kind of talent, and he will continue to adjust. Um, you could argue he's making a case for Rookie of the Year. I mean, he's got a lot of competition, no lie, but he's making a case for it. He keeps pitching the way he is. He's gonna get some votes. He may not win it, but he's gonna get some votes. I love the guy. I think it's a great signing. Epler gets a lot of slack for certain deals he's made. That's not one you can give him slack for. That was a home run. Bringing in Kodai to me is an A+ move. I love it. I love Kodai. Period. I don't. That's nothing else I can say about it. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, that was a home run signing by Epler. You talk about Kodai Senga, 3.24 ERA. He's got, 1.3 whip, which is about average, but obviously ERA doesn't tell the whole story. Wins and losses don't tell the whole story. He's 8-6 though. He really held it down when Justin Verlander was hurt and Scherzer was kind of struggling. He was, I guess, our ace that wasn't the ace, to be honest with you. And he's been our pretty much most consistent pitcher this season. Um, his ghost fork, I mean, absolutely absurd. I mean, you don't even have to throw it for a strike and you make hitters look foolish. It's absolutely absurd. All the different changes that he's had to adjust to this season, like you said, on top of everything else, and to still be third in NL ERA behind Snell and Steele is absolutely impressive. It's a building block type guy moving forward for the future of the New York Mets. You have now a rotation slot that you know is going to be here. Let's see if we can pair him with Mr. Yamamoto, who seems to be in the comment section here as well. Um, there he is. Senga ghost pitch made Dansby Swanson rage quit last night. Yes, hopefully, Mr. Yamamoto, you will be a part of this rotation next year alongside Kodai Senga. And we'll see how the rest of the pitching staff around Senga starts to fill in. I really would be upset if it was reverting back to David Peterson, Tyler McGill. I just don't think those are options at this point. Peterson may be fringe guy, but I would rather not see it. He's just way too inconsistent. But for Kodai Senga to come here as a rookie, new country, new everything for him, and to be one of our most consistent players, taking into consideration both sides of the ball. I mean, and an all-star appearance too. I get it that he was a fill-in, but no, he's an all-star. All-star this year. Absolutely incredible resume for his rookie season. He's going to get rookie of the year votes whether he wins it or not, like you said. And that's just saying something within itself. So I'm really excited about Kodai Senga. He seems to never be flustered out there either. He keeps like a very calm demeanor about him, which bodes well for any time that he's struggling. Obviously, walks are a little bit of a problem. His command with the ghost fork pitch, I think the start before against the Royals, he had some trouble commanding that. It was also a little bit of rain conditions in that start as well in Kansas City for him. Alvarez does a good job. I think that battery is nice. Alvarez does a good job catching him, blocking the ghost fork whenever he needs to, whether it's on multiple pitches in a row or not. But I think Kodai Senga going with that ghost fork, he has a nice little slider. I think it's a slider or curveball. It's one of those two. I think it's a curveball he had. He threw for like 73 miles per hour for a strikeout the other start I saw. And I was like, goodness, that's ridiculous. And then he has an upper 90s fastball that he can reach like 97 for, which is, he has the complete arsenal. And he's a complete pitcher. And that's all you want. That's he's a home run signing by Billy Epler. And I really do commend him a good job for that. So we'll see how they fill it out. I know we talked about the 2024 free agent pitching class. Only really one name that I'm comfortable on. You're not sold on him, but that's Julio Urias coming out of LA. I know he's had a down year. I think his sample size is good enough to warrant him, making a push at him if you'd like. We all know the comments that Steve made. We've already addressed the comments that he made about the Mets not going for upper echelon type guys. There's a thing to be said about maybe not spending so much on starting rotation, focusing on dishing out money for those mid-level tier bullpen guys. So we'll see how the Mets approach it, but already knowing you have a guy that can be at least a number two, if not maybe your number one, going into next season. Because guess what? You know what? If Kodai Senga goes out there and acts as an ace and he's the number one out there for the New York Mets, I don't care, man. To be honest with you, I don't care. I know that's not what a lot of people want, but if Steve Cohen's comments are really true about them not producing the best caliber team they can in 2024 and foregoing that in 2025, you have full reign to sign Yamamoto and make Kodai your one, and then focus your attention on a trade in 2025 or however you want to see fit. Um, Mr. Yamamoto wants his future teammate to be Corbin Burns. I fully, expect, if David Stearns is that guy for the President Baseball Operations, for the Mets to look into a Corbin Burns trade. Obviously, Stearns is familiar. It makes a lot of sense, makes too much sense, really, for them not to go after Corbin Burns. So we'll see what happens with that. Just want to shout out all our regular listeners, Aaron, Yoshinobu. Jay popped in here. I don't see Stevie, but Stevie's usually always in here too. So shout out all of our listeners
Yeah,
dropping comments. We definitely
Stevie
appreciate
popped in earlier. I saw a comment. Yeah, he made the Nimmo comment.
Oh yeah, Stevie is here. What up, Stevie?
So, yeah, shout out and definitely shout out athlete logos. That Ghost Fork shirt and hat is fire. Like that's good stuff. I need to get that. Really want the hat. I need to buy that. Every time I go get it, it's sold out, which makes sense. And Kodai wears it, which is pretty cool. He wears it at the post games, so
I do see that.
that's
That is
pretty
dope.
sweet. So yeah,
Stevie's
man.
here. We see you,
Yeah, what up,
Stevie.
Steve? Yeah, I like. Obviously, we agree. Kodai's the guy. Love the guy. Would love to see Yamamoto here with him. And we'll see. Corbin Burns certainly is an option. It's gonna be interesting. I really want Stearns to come in because I'm interested to see what his vision is for this team because that's what it's really going to come down to. Not really going to matter what Epler wants. Steve isn't going to make those decisions. He's just going to sign off on stuff. It's going to be Stearns' call. So it'll be interesting to see. And speaking of Stearns' call, one thing that may be Stearns' call is Pete Alonso's contract extension. We can talk about this over and over, and I mean, we will. That's what we're gonna do. Not much to talk about. So, a Pete extension. I guess I'll let you go first, and then I'll touch on it. What do you think it looks like? Do you think it happens in this offseason? Do you think it happens during the season next year, or do you think it doesn't happen at all and maybe we move on? What are your thoughts?
I think it happens. I know we have a little bit of a disagreeing sort of philosophy here regarding Pete, and I think we both want him to stay, right? And I think that it needs to happen. You think maybe not so much needs to, but it would just be helpful for him to be around. Um, I can't justify letting Pete Alonso walk away from this team. I just can't do it. Um, I think it happens this offseason only because the Mets might be able to sort of shave off a couple mil AAV on the contract, given his, I guess, unsuccessful season, I would call it. But I mean, he's starting to hit the ball a little bit better. We saw him yesterday, 2 home runs, 5 RBI night for him. We'll see what happens. Pete Alonso's track record speaks for itself. Obviously, we had a slide up here. Once you get finished, we'll go over some of his career stats with the Mets so far since he's been up. To give you a figure on it, obviously, I put out a couple of tweets this morning about the first baseman's market. Matt Olson is performing, you know, how he's performing. He's at 21 mil AAV. That's a steal of a contract for the Braves. I don't compare Matt Olson contract to what Pete Alonso is going to get, just because it's unrealistic to expect Pete to take 21 mil like Olson did. We know that's a team friendly contract. We know that Matt Olson got traded to his hometown team. He's from Georgia. Just made sense for him. He's got 39 home runs. Olson does. He's got 99 RBIs. He's got, for crying out loud, he's got a 975 OPS. It's absolutely ridiculous what he's doing so far this season. I completely get it. Freddie Freeman is making 27 mil a year. Goldschmidt is just under him at 26. I had to correct myself earlier today. I said Goldschmidt was at 27 too, but he's at 26. So I said it yesterday on the Roundtable podcast, a figure that I would say would be realistic and probably not far-fetched is somewhere between 25 and 26 million dollars for Pete. Somewhere between 200 and 210 over 8 years. Would I be happy and willing to give Pete Alonso 6 years if he were to take it? Sure. I would give him 6 years without a doubt. I say take the 6 years and that's great for both of us. But the thing is, Pete Alonso is not going to take 6 years. And Jay might be 6 RBIs. I don't know. I just saw the 5 off the top of my head. But anyways, I say he's not taking anything minus 6. So you're talking about 7 or 8 years for Pete Alonso for a long-term contract because this is going to be his only huge contract extension that he's going to be eligible for within his career. He got a little bit of a late start to his career, coming up at 24 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So we've seen a 4-year sample size out of Pete. He's 28 now. This is the prime of his career. Home runs are there, RBIs are there. Average is not there this season. I get it. So maybe you get him around 24, 25 million AAV over those 7 to 8 years. That puts you around what, 8 years, 200 million if you're on the lower end with 24. If you're on the upper end, around 26, you're at 2 years or 8 years, 210 million. I think that's the range of what not only to expect and what he's going to expect, but I do think, and I'm confident saying that he does deserve that contract. The power numbers are there this season, and his tracks record speaks for itself in terms of the average and all the other metrics. His OPS has always been there. He's got good numbers. Outside of the average this season, he's got good numbers. The strikeout, obviously, I mean, there you go. There's his career stats. He's a 255 hitter. Will provide you upwards of 35 to 40 home runs in a year. Career 876 OPS. Let's just put it up here. He's got a 16.6 WAR in his career, 179 career home runs to add to his resume, climbing up the Mets all-time leaders. I don't think I can't justify trading Pete Alonso unless they get an offer, and we've said this, unless they get an offer, and I just can't, I'm not going to just spitball any sort of offers for any team for Pete Alonso, because that's something that a GM who's been working for in the industry for years of his life is his job to do. I can't see a trade for Pete Alonso happening, so I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to even speculate one. Nelson, what do you think? I think it happens, and I think it has to happen.
I guess the only place we really differentiate is that I don't think it has to happen. Listen, I love Pete. I do want him to stay. Not so much because I'm attached to him and think he needs to stay. Honestly, for my mental health, I don't want to hear the bitching and moaning people are going to do if he goes. that's just me being completely honest. I do want him to stay, though. I do want him to stay. Where I differentiate is, and Easy says 8 years, 216 is as high as he would go. That's 27 mil a year. That's higher than I would go. Ideally, this is me. I know he's probably not going to take 6 years. I know that the Mets probably offer him more, to be honest. They overpaid for Nimmo. They kind of stuck in a hard place here with Pete, because let's face it, Pete is worth more than Nimmo. We know that. The thing that scares me about Pete is this year. I mean, yes, the power numbers are there. That average being as low as it is, and I'm not a big average guy. I don't care so much. People cry about Lindor's average, yada, yada. I'm fine with a guy hitting 230 if he's giving me the power numbers. But when he got down to, he was almost flirting with under 200 at one point. He was getting pretty low. That scared me, because I've seen power hitters that were 230, 240, 250 average guys turn into 180, 170 guys. Adam Dunn comes to mind. Kyle Schwarber comes to mind. He used to hit over 200. He's not, and I wouldn't pay Kyle Schwarber that kind of money. So with Pete, my thing is I would rather sign him to a more team-friendly deal. I know Matt Olson's deal was really good for the Braves. Yeah, you can argue he's an Atlanta guy, this and that, but they did trade for him and brought him in. Pete's been here his whole career, so if anything, he just should give us a little bit of a discount. He's a homegrown guy. He's not a New York guy, but he might as well be now. My offer would be 6 years, 144. It's 24 mil a year. I know that's low. I know that's not what he's going to take. That's just where I feel comfortable. I would sign him to that in a heartbeat without even questioning it. 24 is my number, though. The years is whatever. 8 years, 192 is 24 a year for 8 years. If they do that, if he takes that, I'd take it too. If they go 7-168, which is the middle ground between 6 and 8, that's again 24. 24 is my magic number. I don't think he's worth that much more than Olsen, and he's definitely not worth as much as Freddie Freeman. I'm not giving that dude $27 million a year. He is nowhere the level of Freddie Freeman's level of baseball player, and he just doesn't deserve to be the highest paid first baseman in baseball. Very good. He deserves a bag. I just don't think he deserves to be the highest paid first baseman. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying I want to get rid of him, but to that end, if you're offering him a $25 million a year deal and he's saying no and he's adamant about it, then I think you have to consider moving him. You have to do it. You can't hamstring yourself and just say, all right, we're fine. We'll give you $30 million. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's how you run a club. I don't think it'll come to that. Eventually, I think they'll figure it out. But I wouldn't be opposed if he's adamant he wants 27, 28, 29 mil. I wouldn't be opposed to shopping him and seeing maybe they get a crazy offer. Like you said, I'm not going to speculate on who we're going to get for him. I'm not a GM. If I did enough research, I could figure out a deal. I've said it. I would like, we do trade him, I'd like major league ready people. I don't want kids that are like 4 or 5 years down the line. But that's how I feel about it. I'm going to we got a lot of comments here. Okay. So Yamamoto said, trade Pete before the 2 home runs last night, extend them after. That's kind of the way a New York fan would go. Pretty fickle. The Met fan base is. Trade Pete, get a fat prospect, and then re-sign him as a free agent. That's not a horrible idea if you could kind of talk to him and give him a little wink, but you run the risk of him not coming back. So, you're playing with fire with that one. Easy. The only teams I see signing Alonso on the open market: Mets, Giants, Phillies, and Red Sox. And this is another good point because you don't need to negotiate against yourself. Who out there needs a first baseman? Who out there is going to be willing to pay him that much money? Those teams, yeah, the Giants, I could see throwing him a bag. The Dodgers already have Freeman. The Braves already have Olsen. The Yankees, let's face it, they're cheap now. The Yankees don't scare me. They don't have the pockets they used to have.
They got Rizzo, too.
And they got Rizzo. So who are we fighting for Pete? Let's be honest. There's not that many teams. The Giants are a good one. Phillies, I don't know. Is Harper going to be their future first baseman? Because he's having issues with his arm playing the outfield. Are they going to move him back out there? We know Pete doesn't want a DH, or so far at least that's been the case. The Red Sox, they have what's his name, Cassis out there. He might be their guy. I don't know. Maybe they do decide to go for Pete though. But yeah, Easy makes a good point.
You know who I could see before we get to that? You know who I could see?
Yeah.
Because they seem to be willing to spend, and I think they really do need, unless I'm mistaking out of turn. But what about the Orioles? The Orioles can make a run at him.
They're too cheap.
I don't know, man.
I know an Orioles fan really well. Dumb guys will not spend money. They are way too cheap. No, they won't.
Didn't they offer Correa a contract this year?
I don't think so. If they did, it was a low ball offer.
I'm just tossing it out there.
Their owner is Wilpon level cheap. Like I don't think they'd go there. AB was smart. Then again, they have what's his face over there too. I'm blanking on the name. It's not as good as Pete, but anyways. Yoshinobu, our owner, is pay over money for what our owners pay over $200 million dead contract per year. Money for Pete is a joke. Yeah, I don't think Steve is necessarily worried about the money per se, but overall, thinking about it in the long-term prospects of the team, you can't just give out money. Isn't it sad that the only homegrown Mets is stayed in Queens, Ed Kranepool and David Wright? Yeah, we don't have a history of keeping our guys, that's for sure. We need to learn a lesson for the Braves. Dodgers don't extend trade for prospect. That has worked out for the Braves and Dodgers. They don't necessarily have that mentality of we're keeping our guys at all costs. If it comes to it, we will trade them. I mean, they replaced a legend in Atlanta and Freddie Freeman, and nobody ever thought they would have done that. So
That doesn't happen often though, where you can find a viable option at first base to replace. I get the point, but like I don't know. I think that's apples to oranges what the Braves did.
Padres would pay Pete. Yeah, the Padres would throw money at anybody. And yeah, I agree. I agree. Not often we agree with M Easy, but I agree with M Easy. I think me and him are kind of seeing eye to eye on this one a little bit. Um, yeah, that's the Orioles just don't seem to be that. Yeah, the Braves passed on Dansby Swanson as well. They aren't they aren't hamstrung to this. We got to keep our guys. That's for damn sure. Um, Jay
So
says
what's
hitting in San Diego.
what's so okay, so if you don't want to throw a contract at Pete because you're worried about the money, if this is the argument, you're worried about the money that's tied into Lindor and Pete collectively as your core, then you're not even entertaining this. That's not a discussion about what the money per year is at that point. It's just really about you don't want to see him get a contract anymore. So I've heard this notion too about we can't pay this much money for Lindor and Pete because they're not winners. We're not going to be going anywhere with them as a core, as a duo, as the big guys in the lineup. Well, if that's your inkling and that's your opinion, then why even pay Pete Alonso at all? Why are we even talking about this? Because if that means you just don't want Pete Alonso here at any cost at this point with what Lindor got. And I don't think the two contracts have anything to do with each other. But if people talk about Lindor congruently in his contract with Pete Alonso and what he might make, then it just makes no sense to talk about. And to be honest with you, if Pete commands 25, 26, if you're already going over the luxury tax versus that 24 mil mark, I can't see Cohen penny pinching for $2 extra million or even one. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
the Lindor haters are gonna try to spin it however they. I mean, there's a faction of this fan base that just hates Lindor and they hate the core and they don't think we're going. And you can't convince them otherwise. I just think you have to. I don't think it's a. I just think you have to be careful of just throwing him a bag just for the sake of he's a homegrown guy and he needs a bag. Like I'm willing to give him a pretty decent offer, but I'm also willing to walk away if I have to. Like that's all it comes down to. Like I'm not hamstrung to the he's a homegrown guy, he needs to stay. I'm just not. I've learned long ago that I just don't get attached to these guys. If somebody offered me a boatload of chips for Lindor, as much as I love the guy, I'd ship him out of here too. If it's better for the Mets in the long term, that's my focus. So Pete staying, while it would be a great story and I'd love to see it happen, I am not going to be one of those guys that is like, oh, if Pete goes, I'm done with this team. It's over for this team. We might as well just blow it up. I just don't believe that. There's other options. You can figure it out. I mean, Juan Soto is going to be a free agent. You can take some of that money you were giving to Pete and throw it his way. Clifford looks like he could be a really intriguing prospect. Maybe he gives you that kind of power at first base. You never know. Lots of things can happen. There's lots of guys that come available via trade. There's future free agents. It's just, I just not, I don't believe in that mentality of you have to keep guys just because they're homegrown. That's just not me. That's my personal philosophy. If for the if it's for the betterment of the team, I'm willing to move whoever it takes. But when it comes down to it, I still think he's going to get a contract. I still think he's going to be here. I would just be a little cautious of giving him too much. That's where I'm at.
And can I propose this sort of philosophy that I don't know if this is what the front office and Steve Cohen mean by not going after the upper echelon guys, but Obviously, when Steve Cohen came and bought this team, the precedent was that we have the richest owner in baseball. He's going to be making the highest bid. He's going to be putting on an extra couple of $1 million on these contracts a year just to get the guys in the door over somewhere else. If that's how he's gonna be spend his time as an owner, and if that's what he's gonna do is toss around a couple $1 million extra to make sure the Mets are the front runners in the sweepstakes, then guys like Pete Alonso, we saw in the Lindor contract as well. We're gonna see any other extension that comes up. We saw it with Nimmo. That's gonna be the precedent of any negotiations that happen behind closed doors, in my opinion. Pete Alonso is gonna walk into that room and be like, "Listen, we got the richest owner in baseball." And I'm not saying this, he's gonna say this word for word, but he's gonna his agent and him are gonna come with the game plan of saying, "Hey, listen, we saw it be done for other guys. Nimmo and Lindor were two guys, right? And now all of a sudden you're starting to penny pinch me on the contract extension. We just paid two older gentlemen by the names of Verlander and Scherzer $43 million a year to get him in the door over anybody else." So I agree, and I think that it's past Lindor or it's past Pete Alonso and his contract. Steve Cohen in the front office need to set the precedent that maybe they're not going to go above and beyond in terms of money. They're going to give you fair market value pricing, and they're not going to give you a couple million extra dollars just because Steve Cohen's the richest owner in baseball. That I think that's starting to become a problem and a trend that people just expect, and the fans for sure, but players now around the league are expecting, hey, maybe I can go to the Mets because I'm going to get a couple million extra out of Steve when I know I don't really deserve it.
I think that's part of the reason he's trying to lower expectations too. I think he wants to get away from that narrative. That doesn't mean that he won't be willing to go over the top if he has to. I just think he does want to get, and that's part of building the farm system too. He wants to get away from just throwing bags at guys. He wants guys that are controllable, that are here under very cheap contracts for years to come. Like that's a goal. And if that helps you in the future to be able to sign guys like a Pete for more money. The wild card here too is Shohei. If we throw Shohei 500, 600 million, however much money, are we going to also throw $200 million at Pete Alonso? That's a lot. So you got to think about that too. You just never know. I still think Pete signs. We'll see what happens. It's been an hour, so we probably need to wrap it up. We'll talk about this again, I'm sure. I do want to just touch on some of these comments because we got a lot of them flowing in. Aaron said, what about the Blue Jays? The Blue Jays got Vlad Jr. Unless he's willing to move to DH, I don't see that being a fit. Sign Pete, it's a multi-billionaire's money. If it fails, trade him for prospects. That's kind of where I'm at. Start Baty, Mauricio Vientos at first when Pete leaves. I don't think that's the answer.
Not happening.
How many more years? Oh, Lindor's here for another 8 or 9 years. He's here for the long haul.
After this year, I think it's 7, isn't it?
No, he's. I'll look.
Oh, because he had that extra year. I think it's 8. I think it's 8.
Let's see.
While you're searching that, Jay says 40 plus home runs a year is a lot. I agree. Whatever 179 divided by 4 is, that's what your average is for Pete Alonso.
He's here for 8 more years after this year. So
that's what I figured. I figured it was 8.
And Measy, if he turns down 8 years, 200 something, I would move him. Do you guys know where the Giants and Red Sox farms? I think the Red Sox farm is decent. Go ahead.
It's not top 15. I'll tell you that. 2023 preseason. This is preseason of 2023. But the Red Sox and Giants farm systems, respectively, were ranked 16 and 17. Oddly enough, the Mets farm system at that point in time, when that ranking came out, was ranked 11th, and it only got stronger at this trade deadline. So Giants and Red Sox farm systems are not even top 15.
Yeah, they might be a little. I mean, I know they've had a few guys that have done well this year. So that might change a little bit whenever they do the midseason updates. But yeah, they're about middle of the pack. The Mets were that high because of Alvarez and Baty and um, those guys. They hadn't graduated yet. Now that they graduated, that would have dropped them back down. But then they did all those trades, so they'll be up there. Got to that one already. Steve Cohen paid a pre. Yeah, he did. He made him the highest paid closer in baseball, and then he went and got hurt. So we'll see. Hopefully that works out for us. And lastly, Steve Cohen knows overpaying is losing. A strong farm is the only way to win. Yeah, I mean it's not a good strategy to just keep throwing money at guys, especially older guys. So one thing about younger guys, you want to give guys in their 20s and 30s 200, 300 million, that's fine. Let's get away from giving these 40-year-old guys a bag. I don't want to see that anymore. So anyways, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you to everybody that watched. We had a pretty decent flow of comments. Yoshinobu, future Met, I appreciate you. M Easy, I love to hate you, but you're still solid in my book. And we agreed on a few points today, so I'll take that as a win. Jay, shout out you. Explosive Diarrhea. I don't know why that's your screen name, but shout out to you. Who else? Aaron, shout out Aaron. Our guy Stevie, shout out him as well. I think that's everybody. Timothy, what's up, Timothy? Yeah, that's everybody that was watching today. Anybody else that did watch and didn't comment in the future, please feel free to comment. We go through and read them all if we can, unless you say something completely outrageous. Then we will not read that. But as you can see, if you disagree with us, we'll still read it. It's not a big deal. We appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching. Real quick, I'll do a couple shout outs and then I'll let Chris say what he has to say. Obviously, follow me if you're on Twitter, follow me at Amish Country Met. I cannot talk. At Amish Country Mets fan on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course here on YouTube. If you're on Chris's channel, and you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you jump over, give me a sub, and same vice versa. If you're on my channel, jump over to Chris's. Chris's is at CPNY Sports. Give him a sub, give him a like, give him a comment. Also follow him on Twitter and Instagram. Same thing, CPNY Sports. And then give us a follow at our page at Interstate Mets on X. It's not on Twitter. It's on X. Give us a follow on X. I'm going to remember to change that. All right. That's it for me. Take us out, Chris.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys, everybody, the regular listeners. This makes it so much more fun to have you guys comment your guys' thoughts. Obviously, especially in a situation that has so many variances of opinions. Nobody is technically right or wrong. Nobody really knows what's going to happen in the future, and that makes this so much more fun. Ever since Nelson and I started doing this about a little bit over a month ago, we've explored so many different topics and every which way the team has taken us since we've started this, and it's very fun. I definitely enjoy doing it. I hope you all are enjoying it that are sitting at home listening. If you have any topic recommendations, hit us on Twitter, comment even on YouTube, our channels, on these videos. Comment about a topic you want us to discuss. We'll cover it. This is us trying to find topics at this point in juncture in the season to go over. Content's running a little dry, as you can tell. We're still going to be here. So if you guys want to talk about anything, if any of you guys ever want to even come up, show face, have a discussion with us, we'll be more than happy to do it. We got Jay up here from JNY Sports a couple episodes ago. Go check that out. We'll do something similar, integrate you in the show, and get your opinions on here. However you want to do it. So let us know. Definitely appreciate it. Like Nelson said, subscribe to both of our YouTube channels. Subscribe or follow the Twitter. Follow the X. Both of our handles. And yeah, this is gonna be fun. Continue to tune in. Continue to drop the comments, and we'll see where this team takes us. And that's all I got. Appreciate it. And like that, we are out, guys.
One last thing though. Tomorrow, I'm pretty sure we're still on post-game show.
Oh, yes. Post-game
keep an
show
eye out.
tomorrow.
Yep, keep an eye out for that. You can find it on my channel, on Chris's channel. We'll be joined by our buddy Matt, Flushing Sunny 41. If you don't follow him, check him out. And yeah, we'll be doing a little post game tomorrow. We used to do them more frequently. Fell off a little bit, but we want to get his thoughts on the trade deadline, on everything, because we haven't really gotten his thoughts. So keep an eye out on that for tomorrow. As always, right after the game. Yep. As always, thank you for watching, and let's go Mets.
Thank you for watching the Interstate Mets Report, streaming Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to @Amish Country Mets Fan and @CPNY Sports.